Guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today, guys, we are reading Racing in the Rain, chapter 25. And so, guys, let's get started. Chapter 25. That year, we had a cold spell in each winter month. Then, when the first warm day of spring finally arrived, in April, the trees and flowers and grasses burst to life with such intensity that the television news had to proclaim an allergy emergency. The drugstores never buy drugs and never consume them. They're bad for you. Literally ran out of allergy medicine. But while the rest of the world was focused on the inconvenience of hay fever, the people in the world had other things to do. Eve waited with the unstoppable process of dying. Zoe spent too much time with her grandparents, and Danny and I worked at trying to ease the pain we felt in our hearts. The April 1 presented itself. He had gotten a job offer from one of the racing schools he worked for. They had been hired to provide race car drivers for a television commercial, and they asked Denny to be one of the drivers. The race course was in California, a place called Thunder Raceway Park. I knew it was happening in April because Denny talked about it quite a bit. He was very excited, but I had no idea that he planned to drive himself there. A 10-hour trip, and I had even less of an idea that he planned of taking me with him. Oh, the joy! Denny and me and our BMW driving all the way and into the evening like a couple of banditos, running from the law like partners in crime. It had to be a crime to lead such a life as we led. A life which one could escape one's trouble by racing cars. The drive down wasn't very special. The middle of the origin is not noted for its scenic beauty, though other parts of Oregon are. And the mountain passes in Northern California were still somewhat snowy, which made me nervous. Luckily, the snow of Siskiyous was confined to the shoulders of the highway, and the road surface was bare and wet. And then we fell out of the sky and into the green fields north of Sacramento. The track was relatively new and well cared for. It was challenging with twists and elevation changes and so much to look at. The morning after we arrived, and so much to look at it. The morning after we arrived, Denny took me jogging. We jogged the entire track. He was doing it familiarize himself with the surface. You can't really see a track from inside a racing car traveling at 150 miles per hour or more, he said. You have to get out and feel it. Denny explained to me what he was looking for bumps in the pavement that might upset one's suspension. He touched the pavement at the midpoint of the turns and felt the condition of the asphalt, where the small stones worn smooth. Could he find better grip slightly off the establishing racing line? And there were tricks to the slope of certain turns, placed where the track appeared level from inside a car, but were actually graded ever so lightly to allow to allow to allow rainwater to run off the track and not a puddle dangerously. After he had traveled the entire track, we returned to the paddock, the infield of the track, where the cars get worked on. 2 large trucks had arrived. Several men in racing crew uniforms erected tents and canopies and laid out the elaborate food service. Other men unloaded 6 beautiful, identical Aston Martin DB5 automobiles, the kind made famous by James Bond. Denny introduced himself to a man who carried a clipboard and walked with the gait of someone in charge. His name was Ken. "Thanks for your dedication," Ken said. "But you're early." "I wanted to walk the track," Denny asked. "It's too early for race engines," he said. "But you can take your streetcar out if you want. Just keep it sane." "Thanks," Denny said, and he looked at me and winked. We went over a crew truck, and Denny caught the arm of a crew member. "I'm Denny," he said. One of the drivers. The man shook his hand and introduced himself as Pat. "I'm going to take my BMW out for a few easy laps," Ken said. It was okay. "I was wondering if you had a tie-down I could borrow." "What do you need a tie-down for?" Pat asked. Denny glanced at me quickly, and Pat laughed. Hey, Jim," he called to another man. "This guy wants to borrow a tie-down so he can take his dog for a joyride." They both laughed, and I was a little confused. "I have something better," the gym guy said. He went around to the cab of the truck and returned a minute later with a bed sheet over me, pressing me to the seat, leaving only my head sticking out. They somehow secured the sheet tightly from behind. "Too tight?" Jenny asked. I was too excited to reply. He was going to take me out in his car. "Take it easy on him until you see if he has a stomach for it," Pat said. "You've done this before?" asked Denny. "Oh yeah," said Pat. "My dog used to love it." Denny walked around to the driver's side. He took his helmet out of the basket and squeezed it onto his head. He got into the car and put on his seatbelt. 1 bark means slower, 2 means faster. Got it? I barked twice, and that surprised him and Pat and Jim, who were both leaning in the passenger window. "He wants to go faster already," Jim said. "You've got yourself a good dog here." The paddock at Thunderhill Raceway Park is tucked up between 2 long parallel straights. The rest of the course fans out from the paddock area like butterfly wings. We cruised very slowly through the hot pit area and to the track entrance. "We're going to take it easy," Denny said, and off we went. Being on a track was a new experience for me. No buildings, no signs, no sense of proportion. It was like running through a field, gliding over a plain. Denny shifted smoothly, but I noticed he drove more aggressively than he did on a sheet. He revved the car much higher, and his braking was much harder. Around the turns we went, down the straights. We picked up speed. We weren't going very fast, maybe 60, but I felt the speed around the turns when the tires made a hollow, ghostly sound, almost like an owl. I felt special being with Denny on the racetrack. He had never taken me on the track before. I felt sure and relaxed, being held firmly to the seat, and was comforting. The windows were open, and the wind was fresh and cold. I have driven like that all day. After 3 laps, he looked over at me. "You want to try a hot lap?" "A hot lap?" I barked twice. Then I barked twice again. Then he laughed. "Sing out if you don't like it," he said. One long howl. He firmly pressed the accelerator to the floor. There is nothing like it. The sensation of speed, nothing in the world can compare. "Hold on now," Denny said. "We're taking this at speed. Fast." We went hurtling faster. I watched the turn approach, scream at us until we were practically past it. Um, past it. And then he was off on the accelerator and hard on the brakes. And then he cranked the wheel left. And he was back on the gas. And we were pushing through the turn, and the force of gravity shoving us toward the outside of the car. But the tires holding up us in place. They were not hooting those tires. No, the owl was dead. The tires were screeching, and they shouted, howling, crying in pain. "Ah!" He relaxed on the wheel at the midpoint, and the car drifted toward the exit. And he was full on gas, and we flew out of that turn, and toward the next after that. 15 turns at Thunder Hill. 15, and I loved them all equally. I adore them all. Each one is different, each with its own particular sensation, but each so magnificent. Around the track we went, faster and faster, lap after lap. "You okay?" he asked. Looking over at me as he sped at nearly 120 miles per hour. I barked twice. I'm gonna use up my tires if you keep me out here," he said. "One more lap." "Yes, one more lap. I live my life for one more lap. I give my life for one more lap. Please, God, please give me one more lap." And that lap was spectacular. I lifted my eyes as Denny instructed. "Big eyes, far eyes," he said to me. Those references, points he had identified when he walked the track, he was not even seeing them. He was living them. He had programmed the map of the race course into his brain, and it was like a GPS navigational system. When we slowed for a turn, his head was up and looking at the next turn, not the turn we were driving, but his attention, and his attention was far ahead, to the next turn and the one beyond that. With every breath, he adjusted, he corrected, but he did it all instinctively. I saw then how in a race he could plot now to pass another driver. These another driver 3 or 4 laps later. He thinking his strategies, his mind, all of Denny unfolded for me that day. After a cool down lap, we pulled into the paddock and Enter crew was waiting. They surrounded the car and their hands released me from my harness and I leapt to the ground. Did you like it? One of them asked me. And I barked, yes. I barked and jumped high in the air. You were really moving out there, Pat said to Denny. We've got a real racer on the set. Well, Enzo barked twice. Denny explained with a laugh. 2 barks means faster. They laughed. And I barked twice again. Faster. The feeling, the sensation, the movement, the speed, the exit, the shift point, the braking zone, the ride. It's all about the ride. I floated through the rest of our trip. I dreamed of going out again at speed, but I suspected that more track time for me was unlikely still. I had my memory, my experience, I could relieve in my mind again and again. 2 barks means faster. Sometimes to this day, in my sleep, I bark twice because I'm dreaming of Denny driving me around Thunder Hill, and I bark twice to say faster. 1 more lap, Denny, faster. Chapter 26. I'm going to see if this is long. I'm just going to read this chapter too. Chapter 26. 6 months came and 6 months left, and Eve was still alive. Wow, she's fighting back through the cancer. Then 7 months, then 8. On the 1st of May, Denny and I were invited to the twins for dinner, which was unusual because it was a Monday night, and I never went with Denny on a weekend visit. We stood awkwardly in the living room with the empty hospital bed while Trish and Maxwell prepared dinner. Eve was absent. I wandered down the hall to investigate, and I found Zoe playing quietly by herself in the room. Her room in Maxwell and Trish's house was much larger than her room at home, and it was filled with all the things a little girl could want. Lots of dolls and toys and a frilly bed, skirts and clouds, painting on the ceiling. She was busy in her dollhouse, and she didn't notice me enter. I spotted a soccer ball on the floor, and I pounced on it. I playfully dropped it at Zoe's feet, nudged it with my nose, and then dropped down to my elbows, leaving my haunches tall and my tail upright. Universal sign language for let's play. But she ignored me, so I tried again. I snatched up the socks, flung them into the air, and batted them with my snout, then into the air, and batted them with my snout, then retrieved them for myself. I dropped them again at Zoe's feet and faced downward. She pushed the socks aside her foot. I barked, especially one last attempt. She turned and looked at me seriously. "That's a baby game," she said. "I have to be a grown-up now." My little Zoe, a grown-up at her young age? A sad thought. Disappointed. I walked slowly to the door and looked back over my shoulder. "Sometimes bad things happen," she said to herself. "Sometimes things change, and we have to change too." Sure, she believed them, or each understood them. I returned to the living room and waited with Jenny until finally Eve emerged from the hallway and the bedroom and bathroom where the nurse was helping Eve walk, and Eve was brilliant. She was wearing a gorgeous dress, long and navy blue and cut just so. She wore the lovely string of small pearls from Japan that Denny had given her for their fifth anniversary, and someone had done her makeup and her hair. And she was beaming, even though she needed help for her runaway walk. She was walking the runway, and Denny gave her a standing ovation. "Today, the first day, I'm not dead," Eve said to us, and we're having a party to live every day as if it had been stolen from death. That is how I would like to live, to feel the joy of life, as Eve felt the joy of life, to say, "I am alive. I am wonderful. I am. This is something to aspire to. When I am to a person, that is how I will live my life." The party was festive. Everyone was happy, and those who were not happy pretended that they were. Even Zoe came alive with her usual humor, apparently forgetting for a time her need to be a grown-up. When the hour came for us to leave, Denny kissed Eve deeply. "I love you. I want to come home," she replied. "I will come home." She was tired, so she sat on the sofa and called me to her. I let her rub my ears. Denny was helping Zoe get ready for her bedtime. The twins, for once, were keeping a respectful distance. "I know Denny's disappointed," she said to me. "They're all disappointed. Everyone wants me to be the next Lance Armstrong. They want me to be cured of this cancer. And if I could just grab it and hold it in front of me, maybe I could be. But there's a but. I can't hold it. Enzo, it's bigger than me. It's everywhere." In the other room, we could hear Zoe playing in the bath, Denny laughing with her, as if they had no worries in the world. She shook her head to rid herself of her sad thoughts and looked down at me. "Do you see?" she asked. "I'm not afraid of it anymore. I wanted you with me before because I wanted you to protect me. But I'm not afraid of it anymore because it's not the end." She laughed, the Eve laugh that I remembered. "But you knew that," she said. "You know everything. We took our leave, Denny said, I didn't sleep in the car of the ride home as I usually did. I watched the bright lights of Bellevue and Median flicker by, so beautiful, crossing the lake on a floating bridge. I saw the glow of Madison Park and Lestitch, the buildings of downtown peeking out from behind the mountain Baker Ridge. The city sharp and crisp, all the dirt and age hidden by the night. She died that night. Her last breath took her soul. I saw it in my dream. I saw her soul leave her body. As she breathed out, and then she had no more needs. She was released from her body, and being released, she continued her journey elsewhere, high in the heavens, where soul material gathers and plays out all our dreams and joys. That was so sad. That chapter was so sad. But anyways, chapter 27. In the morning, Denny didn't know about Eve, and I, having awakened in a fog from my dream, barely suspected. He drove me over to Luther Burbank Park on the eastern shore of Mercer Island. Since it was a warm spring day, it was a good choice of dog parks as it afforded lake access, so that Denny could throw the ball and I could swim after it. The park was empty of other dogs. We were by ourselves. Well, more her back home, Denny said to me as he threw the ball, and Zoe, we should all be together. I missed them. I swam out into the cold lake and retrieved the ball. This time, he said, this week I'll bring both of them home. And he threw the ball again. I wadded over the rocky bottom until my body floated, and then I paddled out to the ball. I bobbed for it in the lake and returned. When I dropped the ball at Denny's feet and looked up, I saw that he was on his cell phone. After a moment, he nodded and hung up. She's gone, he said. And then he sobbed loudly and turned away, crying in the crook of his arm so I couldn't see. I am not a dog who runs away from things. I had never run away from Denny before that moment. I have never ran away since, but in that moment I had to run. I burst off down the short path and out of the big field over the asphalt. Asphalt? That sounds familiar of a video game. Anyways, asphalt path. And down the other side where I found what I was looking for, untamed wilderness. I needed to go wilding. I was upset, sad, angry. Something. I needed to do something, so I ran. The twigs and the vines whipped my face. The rough had to do it. I missed Eve so much. I couldn't be a human anymore and feel the pain that humans feel. I had to be an animal again. My trying to live to human standards had done nothing for Eve. I ran until my paws were scratched and sore, and my fur was filthy with mud and leaves and burrs. What are burrs, guys? Comment down below if the comment section isn't turned off. Water burrs. I ran for Eve. I slept in the bushes. Sometimes later I emerged myself again. Denny found me. He said nothing. He led me to the car. I got into the back seat and fell asleep again immediately. And while I slept, I dreamed of Eve. So guys, I hope you enjoyed those 3 chapters. And guys, we are ending this video right here. And guys, I hope you enjoyed these 3 chapters. And I hope you are enjoying your last 4 or 5 weeks. No, 4 weeks of summer. I think it's 4 weeks. But anyways, guys, I hope you are enjoying this book so far, and I hope I can finish it before summer ends. So yeah. Bye guys. See you next time. Bye.